But I have been a priest now for more than 25 years. I was at the village itself for 10 years there. Um, Loved it. Had a great time there. I was a counselor at the village way back in the day. That head counselor and then director. My family and I have got 3 kids. My wife Vicky and I, we've got 3 kids. They're all out of high school now. They're all in college. Um, what else can I tell you? Oh, you might be my dog, Buddy. Buddy may join us. I think he's back to sleep on the couch right now, but he may join us. Yeah, that's kind of a little bit about me. So the topic I was going to talk about is loneliness, because I think a lot of people are dealing with loneliness, maybe everybody to some degree. So yeah, it's kind of weird that we live in a world where we're connected in some ways that people haven't been before, like this. Camp got canceled, and yet we're able to get on, and I can, see Kate, I can hear you. We've never met before, but we can start talking a little bit. And it's weird that in a world where there can be more possibilities for connection, it seems that more and more people are lonely. Do you see that? And you can talk openly about yourself or your friends. Do you see it a lot these days? Do you think that it's a bigger problem, or it's not such a big problem? And Kate, jump in the discussion. Feel free.
Sure. Yeah, I'll go ahead. I see it tremendously, not only with Jaden, your age group, just working here at the camp. I definitely see like there's like a loneliness problem or like a sense of community, like maybe a lack of community problem. People want to belong, they want to be a part of something, and it seems like there's less social outlets that people are getting involved with. And the age group that I really see it, which this isn't necessarily as applicable to you, Jaden, but it may be in 15 years or so, is my age group, mid to late 20s and early 30s. I see that there's a lot of people that, maybe aren't married, kind of living alone, but kind of struggling with that because they're not monastics, and they don't want to be monastics, but they're almost living kind of like a deeply ascetical life. And what I mean by ascetical, Jade, is just more of like how a monk or almost like a hermit would live, not even a monk.
Right.
Monks and nuns would actually have more social interaction. So I definitely see it. But I don't know how we can combat it or whatever, but I definitely see it.
Do you guys, either of you, have any thoughts of like, why do you think we may be seeing more? I think we're seeing it more. One of the things I thought of is that there used to be a lot of, there were fewer things that people could isolate to do. Like there wasn't, people didn't have their cell phones, they didn't have their computers. So like growing up when I was growing up, we were outside every day. Like I can't remember a day that it was summertime, we weren't outside. Whether we were, playing games in the street or playing hide and seek or riding bikes or going to the movies. And, obviously this summer is different with the whole pandemic and everything, but even the last several years, I see a lot of people not going outside much more. They're just a lot more inside, and people like in their own room. I don't know, Jaden, do you see that kind of going on? Jaden, can you hear us?
Well, Father, if you can't hear us, I can just have a discussion because we're going to post this later anyway.
Okay.
So some people go back and watch them. So
okay.
Could you re-ask your question? Because I'd like to answer it maybe.
Yeah, it just, one of the things I was saying that why I think maybe one of the reasons may be happening more loneliness is that it's not as natural for people to get together because there's more things naturally they do on their own, whether on their phones, on their social media, or watching Netflix or whatever, scrolling through Facebook. That when I was, a kid and a teenager, we were always together. Like that was the default. It wasn't the default of, are you going to go out today? Once in a while you might stay home, which is kind of weird, and like, how come he's not out today? Oh, he's not feeling good. Like it was weird not to be together. Now it's kind of weird to get together, You know, was it similar for you?
Oh, it's definitely similar for me. I think in a weird way, there's almost too many options. Like sometimes less is more. Um, it's like we have access to so much information, yet what do we really know in a weird way? Like we know how to Google things and get a quick, factoid or whatever, but like we don't actually understand things. And I see the same thing in social interactions. It's like we have Zoom and we have, cell phones and all this wonderful technology, yet it seems that we're losing something relational. And it seems that from what I've seen at the village, maybe we're losing something in the moment that's special as well. Like we're not living in the moment and being present in the moment. Like I think ultimately what makes camp special in my mind is you come here for 2 weeks if you're a camper in a summer as a counselor and you cut off from the world. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
even all the awesome stuff that we do on Facebook and Instagram, I love it. But then at the same time, I'm like, what makes the village special and an alternative to the world is you kind of have to come here to experience it. You know what I mean? And I don't want to lose that because that's part of the draw. It's like, what makes Mount Athos cool? Well, part of it is, 60 Minutes got to go there like once, and that was it.
Right.
And then you have to go to the Holy Mountain and you have to be a part of it and be present and in the moment. And I think we should have social media and all that, but I'm just saying, I think we're more and more we're losing places where you can come and be present and live in the moment. And I think camp still, maybe not to the extent of the 80s and 90s, just because that was a different time, but I think camp still provides that, which
Oh yeah.
I think is why people enjoy it, especially the campers, because campers can't have their phones. I think staff is losing it slightly.
Yeah.
Their phones too much. Even on their time off, that's their time. But like, if they made a commitment to just say, "Hey, we're not going to be on our phones until weekend off, even on our time off," I wonder if that would change the experience.
Right.
So I think but I think that's the draw of camp. But I don't know what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking. Like, what's changed? Why are there so many more people that are lonely now? And I'm trying to figure out like what's different. And it's funny you mentioned that whole like be in the moment because no one used to have to tell you that. Now it's like this big thing. Like when people write books, so how to be in the moment. When I remember a staff meeting, and every afternoon, Jaden, we would do this meeting where the counselors get together while the kids are all getting a snack. And I remember there was like some kind of issues going on camp where everyone was like hyper focused on whatever had gone on. There was like a problem between two campers or something. I can't remember what the situation was. So I remember in staff meeting, I said, all right, we're going to try to bring some perspective back. And I said, imagine that we all got to ride in a helicopter. And so somebody brought a helicopter to camp, and in small groups, we got on the helicopter, and the helicopter would go up 100 feet. So now you can see past just the immediate camp area and the camp buildings and the woods there. Now you can see beyond to our neighbors. So what might you see going on? If people say, oh, people are coming home from work and people are, somebody's sick at home. They're imagining like what's going on all around. I said, okay, let's go up to 500 feet. Now we can see farther. You can see even in the town, like what's going on. Because I wanted them to stretch their focus beyond like our own little like 400 acres. But now it's like I think like the default is this is my world, me, my phone, my computer, and I get that like there's so many great things about it. Like this is one of them. We get to talk to each other even though we're all in different states. But I'm trying to figure out again back to loneliness. Like why are people lonely? And I think that's one thing is the default is not to connect. The other, I think one of the defaults is to just seem to connect, but not really connect.
Yeah.
I can go through Facebook for hours and, see what's going on. Am I really connecting? It's almost like I'm reading a story. It doesn't have to be even true, It's like reading a book, but I'm not really, connecting. Do you see loneliness? I think is kind of difficult because it's not always easy to see, right? So if you could see loneliness, what might it look like? If there's somebody that is lonely, what kinds of things do you see? It's hard, isn't it?
I think one thing that I have maybe noticed is just, I don't know if this directly correlates with loneliness, but almost kind of like a despondency, or maybe just a lack of joy or a lack of being content. And I think I see that with a lot of people in my age range.
Yeah.
Just like, why am I here? What am I doing? Um, you know, and I guess it can also manifest itself also in depression. That, I mean, depression is like, I mean, I don't know the statistics off the top of my head, but I do know that statistically it's being diagnosed at a way higher rate than it's ever been before.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's just, and I don't know, I think maybe a lot of it too, and I'm sorry, this is going way off topic. I'm sorry here,
Yeah.
JP,
It's all right.
but might be interesting for the folks that watch this later. But I think a lot of it is maybe too, like, we almost prolong life too long now. Like,
Hmm.
you know, back in my parents' day, I mean, my dad was a head basketball coach at 22, working at a high school, and you know,
Wow.
had a college degree. But that was more normal in the early 80s. You saw people with, you know, starting their careers and
That's
getting
true.
going. But like now we're kind of in college till, you know, we're 28 or 30, and everything's just kind of prolonged, and it's kind of
Yeah.
hard to get out there and start being involved. I think there was just a lot more involvement in general with your generation, maybe even a little bit older than your generation.
Yeah.
Like, especially that generation, maybe like 10 years older than you. They
Mhm.
just got going on things, and they were also much more structured around social groups. I mean, like, even like Lions Club was really big, you know what I mean? I
Right.
joke about it, but like my generation, there's no social anything. It's like there's no social fabric almost. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, you think about it, because when I was growing up, there were tons of groups from not just church youth groups, but like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts,
Yeah.
sports teams, which I think are still around. I don't think they're as popular as they used to be, but they're still around. So that's one thing. But even adults did sports, like bowling was like a
Yeah.
big deal. It's like it's something out of a TV show now. But yeah, adults used to get together and go bowling like weekly. You know, watch it on a TV show. Say, oh, it's bowling night. You know, people had garden clubs. They had all kinds of things. And so I think it was just sort of, we had a natural, we didn't decide to get together. It's just what people did.
Do you think, because I mean, I grew up more in the social media age, so I can't speak with any, you know, expertise on this, but do you think it was like, do you think with the advent of kind of the way technology's gone, it's sort of just made it so that people aren't getting involved in things because it's just kind of like usurped it, or it's just like, why would we do that? Because we can do this instead. Whereas back in those days, you don't have cable, you don't have all these other outlets. So it's like, all right, we got to get involved. We had to do something to stay occupied. And really they were all relational too, which, you know, was helpful. You know what I mean? I don't know, like maybe technology has kind of taken away from that in a weird way. It's like, like technology has connected us, but it's almost like disconnected us or something. I don't know.
That's what I think, because I think all of it is about seemingly connections. I'll give you an example. For me, when I left camp after my first summer as a counselor, this was before unlimited minutes on the cell phone, you know, and I had hundreds of dollars in long distance bills. On the one hand, you'd say, okay, that's great because I connect with my friends from camp and I wanted to talk with them and all that. And I was glad I was able to do that. What was I not doing when I was doing that was talking to my friends back home. They're like, are we getting together? And I'm like, no, I got a phone call tonight. Or, you know, or they try to get through it if the phone's busy because I'm on the phone. Again, it's not about good or bad. It's just I'm trying to get us to think about where some of the sources might be. We'll get to some of the solutions after, but yeah, I think part of that is the fact that our attention is in seeming connection kind of stuff.
Yes.
You know, social media, you know, internet, it all is about connection, and yet actually there's not always a lot of connection. Even this, like I was talking to somebody earlier about, so here's camp, we can't get there, and okay, let's do a Zoom. And for a lot of people, like well, I'd rather just do it on my time. I'll watch it later when I want to watch it, you know. So yeah, but I don't think it's intentional. I don't think anybody says, well, I'm going to be alone.
No.
You know, I think it's just
Opposite. I think they think they are connected, but they don't realize how disconnected they are.
yeah,
Can I ask you one question too? And I've been
yeah,
thinking about this. So for those of you that watch this later when we post it, I'm from Alaska, so I have a close, maybe somewhat relationship with St. Herman, just asking for intercession and whatnot. But I've been thinking about this with all the virtual church, and I don't mean this in any controversial way. I'm just
yeah,
it's like, so virtual church has been a blessing, especially for those that virtual church has been a blessing, especially for those that are like, maybe infirmed or sick, and those that just can't make it, right? So like it's been this like wonderful blessing for us in a lot of ways. But on the other hand, like part of what made, like when the church is closed, or like when hermits went out to the desert, the desert fathers, like they couldn't like St. Herman, for example, when he was on Spruce Island, he wasn't live streaming the service from Palam.
right,
You know what I mean? Like he was out there building his relationship with God, and he like built a chapel out there on Kodiak that I've been to. Like he had to almost, because he was so removed, he had to really get in communion with God. And I like, for me personally, that the challenge of virtual church is, in one way it's connected me, which, so I'm thankful for it.
yep,
But in another way, it's kind of almost like I feel more disconnected. Like I've had the thought with Maria, I'm like, we're going to try, hopefully go to Alaska, God willing, to see my parents in late August, early September. And we won't be able to attend church there because we just got off an airplane. So that's just the local, bishop rule, or I don't even know if it's the bishop rule, just the state rules, whatever. And we've talked about, well, should we live stream, or should we just do like a reader's comp line? Like, would that be better for us as a couple to just intentionally pray during that time? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I guess it's hard,
We talk about clergy talk about it a lot. I talk about it a lot with Father Andrew here and other clergy, because on the one hand, you're right, live streaming is a connection. So we're telling everybody, tune in, connect, all this, and I think that's good, that because it is a connection. But I think we're learning now by experience, it's not the connection we were hoping for. So like, I'll give you an example for me. 2 weeks ago, yeah, I had a conversation with a person that found out the next day that they were COVID positive. So family called me and said, oh, sorry, you may have been exposed, whatever. I got tested, I was negative, but because just to be safe about it, we said, okay, well, I'll just stay away from church on Sunday. So for the first time, I was going to be in the same situation everybody else had been in. And I said, well, and I thought, I don't know if I could do it. Like, I could watch. That's not a problem. I could sit and watch the service. I could, I could learn from the homily, I'm sure. I could listen to the readings. Could I pray? And I wasn't sure. So what I did, I got up before everybody else did. And I'm like, okay, I'll go to Orthros and try to do it. And I couldn't do it. Like 10 minutes in, I was like watching what was going on, like I'm watching a movie, because that's what I do when I do with this thing in front of me that I'm staring at.
That's exactly what I hate to say it. That's what I've done. Like we've been very fortunate here at the village where we've had a lot of services. So I had to go through the atypical experience at the parish setting. Yeah. But the few times that I have live streamed during all of this, I hate to say this, but it's like I disengage real quick, and it's like I'll sit down on the couch, and it's just like, yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, Jane's asking where you guys post these when they're recorded.
They get posted on our YouTube channel, on the Antiochian Village channel, and like embedded on the website.
Cool. So I think that's a good example for, we had a good intention, and I'm still not against doing it. I think it's a great thing we do for those that connect. I know some people that can't come to church.
Yeah.
They do, and they've found a way to watch this live stream and pray. Mm-hmm. Maybe with practice we could get there. I don't know. Yeah. But I think it's one more example to say that it doesn't necessarily do it the way we think it does. We assumed it would be a way to, everyone could still come to church, but for most people it wasn't. So yeah, and I think that's where I think a lot of the things we're dealing with people is we built a world where it was supposed to be better. And thank God, some ways it is. I mean, many ways it is. I am not one that wants to go back to the days where washing clothes meant taking that washboard and taking all the stuff down to the river and that, and then hanging out to dry me. I'm really happy with my washing machine. It's great. Like, but what was that like? Probably the people that will go down and wash clothes are probably near each other. They probably walk together. They talk. They would do it together. They would talk while they're doing it. They would walk back. So I think a lot of our technology, not just computers and smartphones, but a lot of our modern conveniences made life convenient in one sense and really challenging. And we didn't stop to say, well, before we invent the washing machine, is this going to make us more isolated? Like we don't do that.
Father, can I ask a question? And this is
Yeah.
because I think for those of you that don't know, I mean, I've asked Father Michael a lot of these kind of questions, and a lot of priests, and I think this is kind of central to the Orthodox life, is struggle. And do you think a lot of this comes down to like struggle in the spiritual life is good? Like when St. Herman went to Spruce Island, he didn't want to go there. He was told by his bishop he had to go there. He had to make the most of it, and he had to struggle, and he had to build a church. He had to pray. And a lot of these modern conveniences, I think technology and smartphones, that's kind of like the nail in the coffin. It's just on steroids.
Yeah.
But even your example of the washing machine, I mean, everything has always evolved. So like that would be the counter argument. Well, people would say, well, before the washboard, there was something else, which is true.
Right.
These modern day conveniences, which are just so, high tech and just so advanced, so intelligent, it's almost made us like not struggle and not think and not have to build relationships and it's almost like we need, I think people feel like they need to like work for something, it's like,
but they don't want to.
Yeah,
that's
because of this, of this.
I mean, look, I'm going to show you. Here's my little home workout area. I don't know if you can see on the floor there. You see the dumbbells. You see the weight bench. There's my rower. It's standing up right now. But so why do I do that? I do it because if I don't challenge my body's going to get weak. We've got two astronauts that we launched. Some of you watched the launch of the Crew Dragon, and the two astronauts went up. They're at the International Space Station. They're coming down, I think, this week or next week. Watch what happens when they come down, because now they've only been up for a few months. You can Google, what's the guy's name? He was up there for a year. Scott. I can't think of his name. Anyway, he was NASA, went up for a year. He literally couldn't walk when he came back. Now, this is on the space station. They have to exercise for like an hour and a half a day. Why? Because they don't. In the weightlessness of space, your muscles just get weaker and weaker and weaker because they're not doing anything. You don't walk anywhere. You just a little tap and you float, and you can float all the way from one end to the other. So to combat that weakening, they have to exercise a lot. And even with that, when they come back from being up there really long, they can't walk. Their muscles have just gotten that weak. So it's the same thing with us spiritually. If we don't do hard things spiritually, we don't grow. Physically, with exercise, what's a weight? A weight is saying, when you do this, make it harder. Like I could do this all day, but it's when there's a weight, it's like, oh, that's actually hard. And that's what's going to make me stronger. And socially, kind of like this. I'm glad Jaden's with us, because Jaden, you're the brave solo guy that says, I will be with other people. And everyone's like, well, I'll watch it later, when I want to watch it. And I don't have to say anything. No one's going to ask me awkward questions, because that's harder. And I think you're right. I think a lot of this is we've just defaulted almost naturally all the time, if we're not careful, to what's easier. And it's easier to do what I want when I want it. Is it better for me? I think we're finding it's not,
Didn't you give an analogy like about when you go to the restaurant this time, don't like get exactly what you want. Just order like the most plain thing on the menu or something like that. Kind of relating.
That was out of a book, I think. I think it was out of Way of the Ascetics, where he says, go to a restaurant and order what you don't want. Doesn't that sound ridiculous?
Yeah.
Like, we're the opposite. We're like, oh, do I want, the pork chop or the chicken breast? And, oh, they both sound so good. I don't know what to do. I have friends, I won't name them on here, that like when I go out to eat, we're gonna be a while because they're gonna like, there could be them. I don't know. And then the waiter comes around. You ready to order? Well, you ready? No, better come back. And then it's like the whole, well, why don't you start when it comes back to me? I'll be, and it comes back and they're still not ready because we're like so sometimes petrified about ordering the thing that's not the best thing ever for us. It's like, order what you don't want. You're going to live. And a lot of the campers back when I was counselor or camp director could tell you the horror stories when I would walk around and make them eat food that they didn't want to eat.
Well, and it's kind of like, how can we grow if there's never struggle? Like I don't know how, like, it's like in anything in life, like even to get like gasoline, you gotta or to get oil, you gotta drill for it. Like to make a diamond, you have to refine it. Like anything, like you can't, it's like, how can we grow if there's not struggle? And like, for myself, that's been the hardest part when I've had to do virtual church. Now, I think it can be done, and it is a blessing if you do it intentionally and you really think about how you're going to combat it, which I've been lazy, so I haven't done that, unfortunately. But it's like, it's almost like too easy. It's like, okay, gonna pop it on the iPhone. I'm just gonna like watch it. It's like, it's not hard. Like, and then I think of like Saint Hermit and like those other like hermits or whatever. Like, they grew in that relationship because it was just really hard. Like, it was like they had to work to get that relationship, and day in, day out, night. And
yep.
I think it can be done. Like, and I'm saying like the virtual church, it is a blessing, but if you're like me and you're lazy, it's like we have to think about that. Like, it's almost like there has to be like a conversation with your priest or your wife or whoever, so that when you go into virtual church or all these things, just how can we use this to like our benefit and not to like, our destruction?
Yeah. And that's kind of the first thing I was going to get to when we talk about solutions is if we're not going to be lonely, we have to be ready. Struggle might be a little hard, but at least to work, maybe to struggle, maybe to suffer a little bit, because a lot of us, I'm naturally an introvert. Like, I'm not naturally like wanting to be in front of people and all that. For some people, they get energy in front of a crowd, and other people, it like takes their energy to do that. It takes my energy. So when I'm with people, I enjoy it. Then I have to kind of retreat and recharge because my natural thing is just to kind of be by myself, just with a few people. Or call one person, not be with tons of people. So, yeah, we have to be ready to work and to struggle because connections are always going to be hard. I don't know Jaden. He doesn't know me. Maybe he's seen you on here before, but it's hard. It's hard to be with other people. Are they going to ask me things that are weird to ask, or I'm not going to know the answer? Are people going to like me? We're self-conscious about ourselves these days a lot. And until we're willing to work and fight through a lot of those feelings, the default is going to be to withdraw. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, we get lonely because we're alone. So I think that's the first thing I would say on what we do about this is if we struggle with times of loneliness, accept the fact that we might need to work harder, which, like we're talking about, almost nothing else in our life encourages us to do that,
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Father. So this is I don't want to go down this tangent, but like you just hit something for myself that I can relate to, which is you just mentioned there, we're self-conscious a lot about how people are going to perceive us, and I see that very much in today's world, especially living in a polarized society. We're always worried. What's going to offend somebody? What's going to upset them? Is this going to come off wrong or right? Which kind of, a real relationship or friendship, it's work. You guys we're sharing different opinions. We're sharing different ideas, and we're talking things out. We're discussing things. We've almost lost that art in the social media age. because we sit on a screen, we pop off what we want to say, and then there's no real discussion. We're just kind of sharing opinions to the black hole. But then, like, it's good to have discussions with people that are different than us and work through things and talk about things. I mean, it's fun too, but it's almost like I'm like, it's I can be almost scared of it if I don't know the people, because I'm like, oh, what are they gonna think? What, how are they gonna?
Yeah.
And like I will say, a lot of things have gotten better with time, but I do think the older generation is 110% better at that. People share their opinions much more openly that, are a little bit older. Like my generation, like we just can't do that. We're like the social media generation, we're chameleons, like whoever we're around, we just kind of parrot, we want to fit in, you know what I mean? I think social media is kind of, because everything's out there, everyone's going to know how you feel and think. We're
and you typically sort of play to the people that are like you.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's kind of a vicious cycle, because if you think about it, when we're around a lot of people, you're always going to make mistakes. You're going to say stupid things, but you learn that it's okay.
Yeah.
When you're not around a lot of people, you're afraid of what might happen if you do, but you don't try it out to see. So that fear grows, which makes you not want to be around people more. So you stay by yourself, and you don't build up kind of like a thicker skin of like, oh, I can say something wrong, I get teased, and it's okay.
Yeah.
So it just kind of, I think that's part of it. It's kind of builds on that. And then when we do connect, sometimes it's hard to connect deeply, because we're not used to that harder work of connecting. So even when we do connect, sometimes I find a lot of, like, I'll see people in a room and it's just, they're awkward because they don't have a lot of practice talking about or talking with other people. And that's the second thing I wanted to say. So the first part was, you got to work hard. The second, I think, reason why, or solution for loneliness is, if a lot of people are lonely, and I think it's true, maybe everybody to a degree, how do you bridge that? Someone has to sort of leap over the fence and say, I'll hang out with you. Someone has to take the initiative. Somebody has to do it first. Somebody has to be the one to approach the other one, to be proactive. So that's one thing I wanted to talk about a little bit here is I think a lot of us want to connect, but we're waiting. And when people don't connect or try to connect with us, we can get a little self-conscious. How come people don't call me or don't talk to me, or other people seem more popular or whatever? When really it takes somebody to reach out to someone else for that to happen. And I think if we just stop being the one to wait and be the one to do it, to be the one to reach out to start it. And that's hard, again, because we're all a little self-conscious and we're afraid what's the reaction. And let's be honest, we're all afraid of rejection. What if they think I'm weird? What if they don't want to talk? What if they don't want to be a friend,
This is so spot on. Maria and I were just having this conversation over the weekend, like literally verbatim what you just said, of how we just have to get over ourselves, and if we want to have certain relationships, we have to be the bee. Like you can't wait on someone else to be the bee. Like you have to, like Christ is like, pick up your cross, follow me, imitate me, and it's like it's hard to do that.
It is. Even married couples. So you're a married couple. A lot of married couples are lonely. Now they have each other, which is great. But like, you want to be able to connect with other people. That we're built to live in villages and cities. Not everybody's built to be a hermit. But it's like, well, no one's really called us. So whenever I talk to someone who's lonely, this is kind of where I want to get them to, is to say, okay, people haven't called you, but have you called anybody? And I don't think they feel guilty. But that's the solution. The solution is for you to reach out to someone else, even though you think you're doing it maybe for them. You're going to make a connection. It's going to be a connection for you. And that's, I think we just have to, that idea of being proactive and not waiting. And then the third thing I was going to mention is, it's kind of related to that when we reach out to someone, it doesn't have to be for us. We might want somebody that we like. They seem really cool. Be really cool if we spent time with them, but they're not calling me. Maybe you call that person, fine. But maybe there's somebody that maybe you wouldn't think of calling just to hang out, but they'd appreciate hearing from you. And so not only reaching out and being one to start it, but to start it with people that maybe are the ones that are waiting primarily, the ones that are maybe more lonely than us, that really could use some, and then in a sense, reaching out for the purpose, not necessarily because we want to connect, which is nothing wrong with that. Obviously, that's a good thing, but reaching out because you want to be a connection for them. And that's where I think a lot of if there's an antidote to sort of the default setting of isolate, I think it's be ready to struggle, be ready to be the one to start that connection, to take the initiative, to be the one to reach out, and then to reach out to people that you're not necessarily doing for you, but you're doing it for them. And then I think you're going to be surprised. We typically find out that we actually enjoy that connection more than we imagined. We thought we were doing just somebody a favor, but we found out we connected in a way that was important for us too. So those are just three that I want to throw out. What's that?
Do you think your third one at all ties into service? Because like I was listening to a podcast recently, and it was kind of focusing on the point of, it was focusing on loneliness and how my generation, like millennials, are the most lonely generation so far, or whatever. And it was kind of saying how, interestingly enough, it kind of touched on the social media stuff, but it also touched on kind of all the self-help stuff. Like everything is geared towards self-help and it's all about you and all this stuff, but it's not working. You know what I mean? Like it's not making people actually happy. But they said maybe instead of focusing on the self, focus on serving others, and that will fulfill you. And I think, and I don't know the stats behind that. I mean, it was just a theory, but I know we're service oriented. I think that third point kind of hits on that a little bit too. So it's not always like an inward thing either. It's we're built to serve. Yeah. And that might help fill that void of loneliness too, because we're finding purpose, hopefully, I think.
Yeah. Jesus said if we wanted to save our lives, we would lose them. And like in a worldly normal sense, that's crazy. Like if you want to save your life, save it, And so it seems like the opposite, but it works. Father John Amy, who was the camp director when I was the counselor there, would talk all about how you're going to find your joy in loving someone else, not in having them love you. The greatest joys we have, the greatest fulfillment we have is not what we get, it's what we give. It's one of the phrases in the Bible, I think it's in one of St. Paul's epistles, where he quotes Jesus, and it's not a saying, it's actually in any of the Gospels. It's better to give than to receive. Again, in a worldly sense, that's crazy. Why is it better to give? Of course it's better to get, right? But this is the sort of treadmill we're all on of like, I want to get, and I keep looking, but I keep coming up empty. And that's where I think a lot of us are stuck in that loneliness trap of waiting for someone, trying to connect in ways that don't really connect, social media or whatever, instead of doing that difficult thing, which Christ always said, like you said, you got to take up the cross, do the difficult thing and reach out to somebody, especially when it's hard. Because let's face it, if it's hard to reach out to a person, it's hard for you to reach out to that person. It's probably hard for a lot of other people to reach out to that person, which means a lot of people not reaching out to that person. We all know certain people that just their personality is a little, I call them prickly, where it's like they're a little, sharp and they're a little scary sometimes, but often because no one's reached out and they're hurt. One of the phrases that they use a lot at Camp Catanese, which is a camp for kids from lower income areas that to get them to go to college. Anyway, one of the phrases they use there is hurt people hurt people. That when somebody's hurting somebody, it's probably because they've been hurt. And we don't see that typically. So you're like, oh, that person's mean, I'm going to stay away from them. It's the opposite. If that person's mean and they're hard to get along with, that's a person, again, if we're willing to struggle, willing to take initiative and willing to do it for the other person, that's the person we reach out to. And we may not be met with all, happiness the first time, because they're going to test us to go, are you serious about this? And there's all kind of movies. There's movie after movie with this theme of like the person that nobody liked and someone finally reached out. Oh, Home Alone, right? The scary man down the street, and he's scary, and he looks like he, you know, eats children or whatever, and he's just a lonely old man. And the kid in the movie realizes like he's really nice once you get to know him, but you need somebody to push through, you know. So I think that's the solution. We want a solution where how can people connect to us, and really the solution is really us waiting to go out and connect to other people. Well, should we wrap up, Cade?
Yeah, I think, yeah, well, I'd say we can wrap up.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I think we should, I think that's a lot for us to think about and work on just right there. But I did take a few notes here. We can just kind of recap what Father Michael said. Work hard, be willing to struggle, be willing to hang out with people and be proactive. And number 3, it doesn't have to be for us. We can reach out to help other people as well. So be ready to struggle and start a connection, reach out to others. And then Father Michael brought in scripture there, and just, you know, as we know, to save our lives, we have to lose, you know, to find yourself, you have to lose yourself. And he also brought in a cool quote here from Father John Namey, which I want to read again, which was, find your joy in loving someone else. You will find your joy in life in loving someone else, not having someone loving you. So just loving others is where you're going to find your joy.
Your greatest joy. Yep.
Better to give than receive. So it's that good. I think that's a lot to ponder on, and we can do that. We'll probably take our whole lives to perfect it. So.
Well, thanks to you and the team there for setting this up. We appreciate it.
Yep. And we will see you soon.
All right. Jade, nice to meet you. Hopefully we'll get to see each other live and in person at camp one of these days.
Mm-hmm.